Welcome back to the Pot of Greed.
Welcome back indeed, guys. Happy to be here for this special Emptying the Pot episode.
That's right, guys. So instead of doing our normal, Yu-Gi-Oh! News and card game news and whatever stories we want to talk about, what we're talking about is what you want to talk about.
Yes, we are going to answer as many questions as we can from the Pot of Greed, although they're not actually in the pot this time. They're on our tablets because you guys write such long, lengthy questions.
When Paul handed me the list, I was like, are these paragraphs? How are these just questions?
Yeah, and don't worry, next week we will be, back with card game stuff. I think we picked a good week to do this because there hasn't really been like a whole bunch of developments like in the Yu-Gi-Oh space, really.
I think we're just all waiting for Quarter Century Bonanza, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean it's out this week.
Yeah, so that's that.
I mean, I guess after it got spoiled, there wasn't. Like, I guess normally that's what we might have been talking about this week, but like it's, it kind of got.
I saw a $10 SP Little Knight and I almost bit.
Yeah, so, anyways, drop a like and leave a 1 in the chat if you're watching the YouTube premiere.
One's up.
And feel free to join in the conversation. We'd love to hear from you guys. I guess we should get started. We can kind of like just take them back and forth. Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
All right, I'll start with the first one then.
Okay.
So this person asks, do you think Yu-Gi-Oh! Should shift away from selling tins and implement collector or trainer boxes like MTG and Pokemon do? As it stands, buying 3 expensive booster packs contained in this loud, clunky tin that doesn't store the cards once they've been opened seems really outdated as modern TCG boxes have done, especially when said box has such a large card pool. Owning more tins than you know what to do with seems like an utter waste of materials compared to cardboard packaging. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that is a little funky part of the tins, right? You open up your 3 packs, they cannot even remotely fill up that tin. Konami wants you to buy multiple mega tins or multiple just tins, but you end up with just an excess amount of tin.
Yeah, this has been a huge problem for me as well, because, as a Yu-Gi tuber, we're always, we're buying products to open.
There was one tin I think we opened up like quite a
case.
bit of
I remember
it.
there's like a case of one of those tins we did. And like you'll end up with a lot of tins and they're just kind of sitting around. And that alone isn't so bad, I guess, outside of the fact that like the amount of cards that you get in the tin is not at all close to how large the tin is. Now, you could argue, well, okay, the tin itself is a good like general purpose storage solution for cards because I have seen a lot of players at like kind of more casual players I've noticed kind of tend to they'll have a lot of tins and they'll just store lots of kind of commons and deck cores and stuff in them. But for me, I think that I don't know what I'm really supposed to do with the tin after I have like one of them.
Yeah, for me, it feels like, I don't really want to be storing a lot of bulk anyway. Mm-hmm. But, I do want to open up my mega tins. And I might but really, I could open up 3 mega tins, take all the singles, put them in one tin, not even fill it up.
Yeah, it's still like half the tin maybe.
And now I have 2 empty tins now that just sit there.
That's actually like literally my problem that I'm having right now is I have like 4 tins sitting around here that are just like.
I see one.
Yeah, there's like one there. There's like one there. Yeah, like, and they're just kind of here. I mean, sometimes they can come in a little bit of handy. But anyways, to get back to the question itself, should they implement more like collector/trainer boxes like Magic and Pokemon do? I would be interested in that system. Like, the Elite Trainer boxes with Pokemon?
I'm interested in it just because of how consistent the branding is and how the value proposition, it feels like it works with those. When with the tins, I'm always skeptical, like, is it truly worth my, $22
like $2 now.
Yeah.
Although, okay, now that I think about it, though, so a couple thoughts on this. Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually did, for a brief period of time, this is in like 2014 or so. I remember
That's a decade, Paul.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? It's been like 10 years since.
I was already an adult. This makes me sad.
Judgment of the Light was the set. But they did this for a few other sets. Like, they did this thing where you would get like 9 booster packs, I think, and maybe like a little promo. And it was in one package. I don't think it was a tin, but it was like some kind of a package.
Was it in a box?
Something like that. And
I vaguely remember some type of box.
Somebody tell us what that's
product
called,
with
because someone knows. But I think you'd get 9 of them, and it's like a glass cube, like a mystery cube type of thing, but like it was official by Konami. Either way, it cost like $30, and you got 9 packs, and so it was actually a bit of a discount, relative to the price of a normal pack. At the time, packs were $4, so getting 9 of them would normally be like $36. This was $30, and I thought that was actually pretty cool. But Elite Trainer boxes are actually like kind of pricey.
They are.
I don't know if you knew. I don't know if they've always cost this much, but like right now they're like $50 or $60 like on the shelf normally, and you do get, I believe, in an ETB, it's like maybe it's 8 or 9 packs, and then you get like some other stuff.
Just, some tchotchkes. You get your dice, some like
like
flip
a
coin.
Flip coin. So the pricing's a little high. Like if Yu-Gi-Oh could do something similar, but maybe like not like $50.
I mean, I don't know. Those Elite Trainer boxes, they fly off shelves.
Depends. I think in some places I see plenty of them on the shelf, but then other times when it's like the newest set, that usually disappears fast.
I mean, I think it is a matter of if you're a Pokemon player, like you really do this, then you buy the Elite Trainer boxes because that's the most bang for your buck, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it just comes down to like, I'm not familiar enough with Pokemon's TCG to really know like what makes a good set or how, like, what the shelf life of these sets is.
Charizard.
Yeah, Charizard probably helps. So I don't know. Would we want to see Yu-Gi-Oh do this?
I'd like to see any type of change to the tin system, honestly.
I think that it feels like they're like working their way there with those like little token 4-pack boxes. Like, Rage of the Abyss has one.
Right.
It's funny because like, in a loose sense, they're like maybe slightly better value for money. You're getting 4 packs and a variant token for $18 compared to a 10, which is like 3 packs for $22. But the 10, I guess, gives you more net cards per pack, and like it's got like good reprints if you could get them. It's weird. But I'm with you. I would like to see it introduced and experimented with because like why the hell not, right? Like another different way to sell Yu-Gi-Oh cards isn't too bad. Just make sure the price is somewhat approachable.
The price is right.
The price is right. Right.
All right, okay. My turn. Do you think the extra deck should have stayed as a toolbox? What I mean by this is that the extra deck should have stayed as a deck of simple but effective staples that either bolster your strategy or offer a simple effect. A good example of this is number 39, Utopia. Utopia is an easy monster to summon and offers battle protection. Its effect won't win you the game, but it's a decent effect that can keep alive. I think this is what the extra deck should have been, not like all the busted extra deck monsters we have today that come out of nowhere and can just win you games. Looking at you, Zeus. Boy, Zeus has ended many a game.
Yeah, how do you feel about this?
Yes and no. It's like the Xyz era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was definitely felt toolboxy, right?
Yeah, I think the Xyz era defined like the rank 4 toolbox,
There were a lot of decks, their whole purpose was to make Xyz monsters. But there were also a lot of decks where Xyz monsters were just something they could make. And so you just ran whatever the toolbox of level of ranks that your deck could make. And there were some good ones. Rank 4, of course, being the best. But, there were good rank 3 there was a good rank 3 toolbox. I remember there was the
rank 7 one ended up being pretty good.
Rank 7 was especially good.
Yeah, 7. 6 wasn't bad.
6 wasn't bad. 5
got neglected.
Photon Strike Bouncer was a favorite.
Yeah, Strike Bouncer was good. 5 got neglected, I would say.
5 did get neglected.
Yeah, there were not good rank 5s. There were some decent ones.
It was like early in. What were their names? It was
Tyrus and Andreas.
Tyrus and Andreas, yeah.
Tyrus and Andreas.
Oh my god!
And the only other
I was
notable,
an adult when they came out too.
The only notable other rank 5 I feel was like Volcasaurus, if you remember that.
I do remember Volcasaurus.
You could
that was
destroy
that
a card and burn you or something like that.
But the era right before that, the Synchro era, I don't think that was really like toolboxy because you did have to have a tuner,
yeah.
And if you're running a tuner, it had to be like purposeful.
I mean, there was a toolboxing point in synchros time, but it wasn't nearly as to the extent that I think Xyz were. So
Xyz were just so much easier to work
for
with.
synchros, I remember the toolbox basically came down to about 3 monsters. There was like Black Rose Dragon when you needed to nuke the field.
Stardust.
Like Stardust kind of is just a general safety thing to go into. And then like Ally of Justice Catastor. And if we want to count it, I think Brionic is also in there too. But it was banned for a good chunk of the synchro, so it's harder to say. But like those were kind of like the synchros you would go into as like your answers to situations.
Like it feels like modern day Yu-Gi-Oh is much more like the synchro format where decks had synchros they went into every single game because that was their game plan. Right now, the extra deck is very much the game plan, but technically, isn't Zeus just a
Toolbox? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I think that what we're really probably upset about here is maybe the power creep, but not necessarily the roles being drastically changed. So, for instance, like there are still just toolboxy link monsters. I think that the nightmares kind of fill that role. Like
you see them less and like they still hang around.
They're less and less because
they've been getting used to.
But there was a period of time where like Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Cerberus were basically like
staple.
They were the staples. That was like what you used to out stuff. And I thought that the design was good because let's take Nightmare Phoenix, right? So fundamentally, it takes 2 monsters, so you're already taking a loss, and then you have to discard a card.
Yep.
Now you'll recoup that card in the sense that you'll get to pop a spell or trap, and if it's co-linked, you get to draw. So like it can recoup. But generally speaking, these are cards where you were taking a small loss in order to get rid of a card that your deck otherwise was not like able to spot remove. And then you could even extend that to maybe Nightmare Unicorn. I think the issue probably this person is talking about comes up when we get to those link monsters that just end games, like Access Code Talker, Boral Sword Dragon, and like Zeus feels Link-esque in that, like, you know, it kind of just overlays on something.
Boy, he cheats the Xyz.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess like the toolbox is still around. It's just that the power creep has just kind of upped it a notch. Like,
and personally, I don't actually mind extra deck heavy strategies. Like, you know, branded could not exist if we only use the extra deck as a toolbox. The extra deck, I think, is a good tool to create varying play styles. I don't like that we're cheating the extra deck mechanics so much now, but
yeah,
I don't mind the extra deck being such a major part of a deck strategy.
You know, I'd actually argue that maybe Konami is trying to move it back to a toolbox because they've banned Warlord Savage, Barone, and Apollosa in the TCG anyway. So I mean, like they're cutting out the generic like super busted stuff. And I think what's basically been left is that Zeus and Access Code can end games, but like I would argue that at least in the case of Zeus doesn't like outright beat you. It clears the board, and that's strong, but like, you know.
No.
You think it does?
Facing down a 4 material Zeus? No.
My thing though is that like you have to kind of like maybe I've been playing too much Master Duel. I don't know. Like I feel like a 4 material Zeus is.
You're not scared of it anymore. You've outed it too many times.
But it's telegraphed.
You're a different breed. See, there you go.
No, but it is.
Now you're talking about how it's telegraphed.
No, it is though. Like I mean, I think you get to see Zeus coming, and he shows up in main phase 2. Like it's not like, to me, Access Code. If we're talking cards that just pop up out of nowhere and win games, Access Code's far worse. He shows up before the battle phase, gets huge, pops things, doesn't target, and you can't respond to his effect. I would argue like that's. I mean, that's not the question. Isn't arguing which is worse, but like, I think Zeus is like kind of just settled in as a bit of the toolbox itself.
I do think Zeus and Access Code are toolbox cards. They have to
Typhon
come out
as well.
at Typhon. They come out at certain times to deal with certain situations. If you use them right, that can win you the game. But that's always been the case of toolbox monsters. If you dropped a Black Rose on somebody way back in our Synchro format days, if that Black Rose hit just right, well, that's the game.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. So to answer the question, do you think the extra deck should have stayed as a toolbox? I'd argue it probably still is. It's just stronger.
Yeah, I think
like should.
I think it's it's fine the way that it is because the extra deck is still a toolbox and like a main part of deck strategy.
Its power has just been raised to meet the current needs.
Yeah.
I would like it to maybe shrink back down some in power, but I don't think that it isn't a toolbox still. Like, I kind of feel like it feels
So
like
I
it
do
still is.
miss the days of running, like, what's his name? The rank 4 that could pop spell and traps.
Oh, yeah, Tornado Dragon. That was a
Yeah.
fun one.
Such a good.
You want to know one that a
toolbox
lot of people
card.
don't remember is, I don't even remember the name of it actually, so. The one that could, Rhapsody. The
Oh
Rhapsody,
yeah. What?
Rhapsody and Berserk or whatever, it would, like. that's
Oh,
what-
that one. I'm thinking of Muzu Rhythm.
Yeah, there's also Musa Rhythm, but like where Rhapsody would just like banish graveyard cards. It was quite niche, but quite cool. Anyway, yeah, okay, next question. With the amount of staple cards that our auto includes in Yu-Gi-Oh!, at what point does the deck stop being pure? This is going to vary from player to player a lot, because like if we're talking like, what is a pure deck? And there's so many like engines and kind of like
This is definitely one of those questions where you draw the line where you like for yourself.
where do you draw the line with the idea of like a pure deck? Like if I wanted, a pure Plunder Patrol deck, what is it not allowed to run?
So I guess if I'm going to claim my deck is pure, then there is only one featured archetype in my deck.
Yeah.
Now, I know some people will argue that, but you're running like these different hand traps, but they're not an archetype. So as long as my archetype is the only featured archetype in the deck, to me, that's pure. It doesn't matter what staples or what...
Yeah, to me, the spells and traps don't make a deck unpure.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't matter what your extra deck is, as long as...
Now, here's a question then. Does your Plunder Patrol deck get to run like Unshaven Angler or whatever? Like, that one like water that... So that doesn't take it out of pure range for you?
Unshaven Angler isn't another...
It's not like an archetype. But it's not a Plunder Patrol.
It's just a tech card.
It's like a tech card? Okay. Yeah, no, I know for me, I've got a lot of decks where I like to kind of try to keep them pretty pure. My personal line in the sand tends to be like, it's subjective, but it's like, does the thing thematically fit? So, for instance...
Like how I'm putting Fiendsmith in my Plunder Patrol.
Yeah, because like it's like they're fiend monsters and they work, and so like, maybe thematically that works. Like for me, my Rika deck is running non-Rika plant monsters like Lone Fire Blossom and stuff. But like, I think they're still plants. It's still there.
We're running Sun Avalon, they're plants.
Yeah, see, I keep this on Avalon out because it's like a separate archetype, in my opinion, anyway. I play Voiceless Voice, and I don't even run, like some people run like Branded Fusion with Sanctifier and Jalgan, and I'm just like, I don't want that. Those aren't like Voiceless Voice cards to me. But I do run like Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon or whatever. And so technically I'm sort of breaking the rule because that's an Odd Eyes card, but it's like pendulum focused. Or not pendulum, but it's like ritual focused. Like its effect has to do with like searching ritual spells. So I feel like we're like staying on the theme of being like
this
ritual.
This is definitely a case of drawing the line.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's vibes based. It's vibes based. Like I think like you just kind of like, you just sort of know. Like for instance,
an Odd Eyes player who will spit in your face over this.
So like a deck that I wouldn't run would be like Snake Eye, Fire King, Fiendsmith. Like I wouldn't, because they're not.
That's not pure to you.
Yeah, that's not pure to me. Is that pure to you? Like Snake Eye, Fire King, Fiendsmith?
No. But, to somebody that's a pure deck.
Yeah, to someone it's pure. But to be clear, I guess to get back to the question, staples like hand traps don't really change it much for me. I think bonus points.
For some people it does though.
That's true. Some people are like, I want to literally win with only this archetypes cards. And I've been that player before.
I've done it. I haven't won, but I've tried.
I will say bonus points if there's a certain hand trap that actually just conveniently happens to like synergize a little bit with the deck. That's cool. So like when zombies, like, Valor Drop zombies get to actually run Ghost Bell and Ash Blossom and like their effects are triggering Valor Drop because they happen to be zombies.
Yep.
That's like a cool synergy. Or like for me, like Vanquish Soul gives me like a reason to run like Ghost Bell.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Maxi.
Normally, I'm playing Max. So yeah, I mean, I'm playing Master Duel. So, I don't know. It's vibes. For me, it's just vibes. Do you run Kaiju in your Plunder Patrol? I know that's like a popular.
No.
You're not a Kaiju guy?
I actually just do not like kaiju. Not the theme in principle.
Like, what do you mean by that?
I don't like just tributing my opponent's cards and they can't respond.
I mean,
I don't like it done
staples.
to me. I don't like it done to me, so I don't do it to others.
Okay. Look at you being a thoughtful Yu-Gi-Oh player.
You know, that's why I lose.
Anywho.
Okay, let's see what this question is. Wanted to share a... Why are mine so long? Okay.
I didn't do this on purpose. Some of mine are... Actually, yours are pretty long. Jeez. Okay.
Wanted to share a stream of thoughts on my state on why I'm pseudo-retired from advanced format as someone who played since 2002. That's been a while. 2 reasons come to mind. 1, around when Kashtira, Tearlament, and Runic hit the scene in both Master Duel and TCG, I think that was a breaking point for the game, warping into a whole new game. Long turn 1 combos and Omni-Negates, I felt these decks really took the whole our turn meme into another level. Also, their ability to turn 2 cards in hand with an active graveyard into a whole board really turned me off. 2, Simo!
You did use 3 exclamation points.
Simo was a huge reason why I came back from a long hiatus in 2016. His videos were always insightful and clearly put in a lot of effort in deck discussions and meta-analysis. However, he has since shifted away from modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think he and Paul are of the last big-name Yu-Gi-Tubers who were in the game since the inception. His departure from the modern game sort of sealed the deal for me to take an indefinite break.
Okay, a bit of a mouthful, but
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the question is here.
This
It's actually not a question.
Yeah, there's not a question. This person kind of just shared
cool.
their thoughts, and I guess they want our reflections on such thoughts.
So I definitely want to talk about his first point about Kashtira, Tearlament, and to not for me, but for most Runic. It was around that point in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where I kind of like turned my brain off with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I struggled to get back into the game after.
Right.
The Tearlament was such an unpleasant deck because I personally felt that I could not wrap my head around what that deck was doing. And I found myself frustrated with how the cards were designed, which, at least in my opinion, it felt like in blatant disregard to the core of what Yu-Gi-Oh was supposed to be.
The restraints of Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm going to take these one by one as well. I think for that first point, I have said for a long time now that I think that 2022. So first, I have a hot take. And some people are gonna like light me up over this, but I think that like if you really kind of play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, and you've gotten to the essence of it, you'll understand what I mean. I think any card released before like 2022 could honestly probably just come off the ban list. I don't think that any of those cards are truly ever going to be relevant again. Like I think that you've got your fun little exceptions. Like there's some old card that's like doesn't have a hard once return, it can be abused. But what I'm talking about in terms of just raw card design and like archetype design and deck design, starting in about mid kind of 2022, things just like really took a spike that I don't think we're ever coming back from. Like the stuff released, Sprite, Tearlaments, even like Runic and Labyrinth, decks just being designed in a way where they are so overwhelmingly performant in terms of what they can do, what they can get, when they can play the game, how much advantage they have, how many effects they have, and how just where they place your opponent in the equation, right? Where like you have these cards like Fenrir that just like, summons itself. It's huge. Grabs a card, banishes face down whenever your opponent does something.
Hankratops was a badly designed card.
Right, yeah. And then like, you look at these tier monsters where it's just like, we shuffle into the deck and we like fuse in the other person's turn and all these things that like, I guess when I'm saying cards before 2022 feel like a different Yu-Gi-Oh sometimes. It's like it's not they can't win, but their wins come a lot more from like having a perfect set of circumstances fall into place. Like it's not like your deck can't do something, which it needs to win the coin flip and like also open with Called by the Grave so you can stop the hand traps. All this, whereas like decks like Tier don't really have to care about going second or first or second. All these decks that can kind of like play in your turn and do all these things. And then since then, it's kind of been a bit of a whiplash of like tier 0-ish format after tier 0-ish format. Like, I know that you can argue whether or not Kashtira was actually tier 0 or Snake Eye or whatever, but just in general, it went from like one overpowered deck to another overpowered deck to another overpowered deck, and like with so little room to breathe in between.
I mean, I feel like every format has a deck that feels overpowered. I mean, I can't remember the last time we had a format where it's like all of these decks just feel, decently fine and good and dandy.
Most would argue that would be like 2019.
Oh, that's
I suppose that's when most would argue. And to be clear, and I'll let you finish the point. I'm gonna let you finish, but no, but like, there's always been a best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh. So just to be clear, I'm not arguing that. Mm-hmm. What I'm arguing is more so that it feels like the nature of the good decks has just fundamentally changed since like 2022. But anyways, go ahead.
I would go as far as to say that you can take any tier 0 deck up until the release of Tier Elements, and they would get completely stomped out by Snake Eyes Azamina, Fiendsmith, whatever you call it. Like the decks we have today completely crush everything we've ever played against.
Yeah, it's really that's the crux of it, is that the general power level of the game right now is so high that it's funny when people will talk about these banned cards, right? I remember asking this on Twitter somewhere. I was like, could some of these cards like Mirage of Nightmare, right? That's like this old band card. So you might not even know what that does.
I know what it does. It's just wild to even hear that name.
So Mirage of Nightmare is old broken ass card, but it's like, I legitimately think if this shit came back, it just wouldn't actually matter very much. And the reason I say that is because, just for reference, Mirage of Nightmare is this continuous spell, and basically like, during your opponent's standby phase, you draw until you have 4 cards in your hand, but then like during your next standby phase or whatever, like discard. It's broken because like you get to draw a bunch and it just like keeps doing that. But you know what the hard kind of cold truth is?
What's that?
Snake Eye and Tier and like they don't give a shit about like cards like that. Because here's the thing,
they can do
right?
whole combos with just
they can do a whole
card.
combo with one card. Like and not to mention Mirage of Nightmare isn't a starter card. It's not an extender. It doesn't even like help. It's just kind of, it's funny because it's banned for these like pre-2020s Yu-Gi-Oh reasons, like of gaining advantage and all that. But like in reality, like I don't know that it would.
You can have all the hand advantage you want. It won't stop like normal summon Ash, Surge Poplar from ending in a full
exactly.
board.
It won't stop. Oh, I pitch Engraver and like I just have like just an engine at my disposal now. And so in that way, I get what this person's saying. That was a point in time where I think like Yu-Gi-Oh could get. It's an inflection point. If you stuck with it, then you're probably still fine and having a good time or whatever. Like, get with the program, right? But I can see where that would be. I think when we look back in like, let's say 5 years, I think people will see that as like, that was the point at which some people just hop off the boat and never came back.
Speaking of hopping off the boat, let's get into a second point about Simo, his favorite Yugi tuber. And, you were mentioned there as well. But, for some people, for a lot of people, Yugi tubers are the reason they return to Yu-Gi-Oh!, the reason why they keep playing Yu-Gi-Oh!. And
some just like seeing our beautiful faces.
Sure. The effect that YugiTube has had on Yu-Gi-Oh! Cannot go understated. Mm-hmm. We've been the marketing. We've been innovating with this game to create content with and to make it entertaining despite itself at most times.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of content creators have found a limit to what can be done with this game to make it exciting for like an audience. I think.
Wow, Alec, stop exposing us.
I'm just saying, like.
No, Alec and I talk about this every day.
There is a limit because we're Yu-Gi-Oh players. We can watch a modern competitive game of Yu-Gi-Oh, and get entertainment out of it. But that might be 1,000 people to watch a video. Mm-hmm. But for many of us Yu-Gi-Tubers who've been doing this for a long time, 1,000 views isn't going to cut it. We want to hit the tens of thousands. We want to hit 100,000. The problem is there is not 100,000 core Yu-Gi-Oh players who are going to watch your videos. You have to make videos and 100,000 people are going to want to watch. And we've realized that you just have to move away from modern Yu-Gi-Oh to do it. Now, I think for Simo, it might have been a bit more personal. I think he specifically was not having as much fun with modern Yu-Gi-Oh as he once did, and that's why he took his channel in the direction that he did.
Oh, I've got insights on this.
But I've heard from many YouTubers, I won't say their names, that like modern Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't really get them any like views, and they've put their blood, sweat, and tears into these channels, and the way Konami's designing cards is not helping.
I mean, I'll give it to you straight, Mr. Person who submitted question. I've got a lot to say on this. So, first of all, I have fairly recently actually spoken with Alex Simo, not your brother, Alex. Well, I mean, I've also recently spoken to him, but not about this. Anyway, the point is, yeah, I talked to Simo recently, and it's exactly what you said. I mean, we were both kind of just sharing the sentiment of like, modern Yu-Gi-Oh is not really that fun for us. What he said, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, so I'm just going to give the gist of kind of what I was gathering from what he was saying, was just that, yeah, he does not find modern Yu-Gi-Oh to be fun for him. He thinks that the power creep has gone too far. He thinks that it's not the game he knows and loves. Simo's a fiend at some Edison format and like some GOAT. I think he can eat that up, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you sort of see that in his content. He's got, these like progression series, these like Edison kind of like rotation with different guests and things like that. But that's the Yu-Gi-Oh that he knows and loves, and he kind of knows it inside out. He gets a lot of joy from it, and his content is centered around it. To your point about covering the modern game too, Simo used to be one of the like real go-to people for like kind of just
he was after it.
Yeah, the weekly meta-analysis, ban list predictions and reactions, like kind of just basic deck breakdown, like here's what this new deck is, how you should play it, should you buy this product? And I think that he's just found himself a little bit disillusioned with it all because he does not enjoy it. And I can relate to pretty much all of those things. At this point, I don't really know or care what the hell happens in like the modern TCG as it relates to my content, right? Like we're sitting here, we're doing, retro rumbles and mystery pack things. And, we want to start, doing some skits and stuff again soon. But one thing I'll tell you I'll never be doing is like telling you how to counter an Azamina deck because I don't care.
Also, I don't know how.
Yeah, with that part. Yeah. I mean, I'm not playing. That's not the Yu-Gi-Oh I'm really playing. It's not the Yu-Gi-Oh I'm really following. I find that I get a lot more joy looking forward to doing an episode of Retro Rivals than... So, it's, to end it on like something of a positive note, I think that it's fine if you don't want to play like modern Yu-Gi-Oh. I think that no one should force you to. You don't have to feel like you have to, but you can always find like something else to enjoy. I think like an alt format and stuff like that can give you joy as well.
I mean, if you can find people who want to play Yu-Gi-Oh a bit differently, that there is a way to enjoy modern Yu-Gi-Oh without, having to fully embrace all that modern Yu-Gi-Oh is. I mean,
it's a lot.
If you can, and it's hard, but if you can find like a group of people who just want to have fun, play like lower power decks, but still use modern cards. It's hard to define what a lower power deck is in Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays.
It really is.
Because, decks are just so powerful and so crazy. And, like, what specifically denotes if a deck is meta anymore? I'm honestly not sure.
I don't even know, yeah.
Our top decks are these, like, pile decks that run so many different engines.
And they're all strong.
And it's like, so if your deck has any Snake Eye in it, is it now considered a meta deck? If it has any, like, Azamina, is it meta? If it runs Engraver, is it meta? Because
what's crazy
those decks aren't, like, pure. Running those decks pure is not winning events.
It's just
piles.
It's when you distill down the best parts of, like, Snake Eye and Fiendsmith and all this stuff, and you kind of put it into one deck, then it suddenly is like this impossible force to beat. But I would argue that if a person was just playing like a pure Fiendsmith deck, which like they're not going to play at a YCS, but like with their friends, that might actually be surprisingly fine. Because there's a lot of like, Fiendsmith cards that are totally left out of the equation.
People don't run a lot of Fiendsmith archetype.
So there is one other thing that I would point out though, which is that like, you know, I was talking about the whole like 2022 or so divide.
Yeah,
it actually applies to the mid tier as well.
Oh,
like
yeah.
there are decks like Memento. Or Mimigal, yeah. But there's decks like Memento, for instance, which has just slowly gotten a little bit of support, and it's actually like a crazy combo deck in its own right. Its turns
Memento
take a long time.
Would beat Full Power Spiral 100% of the time.
I actually think so too. Like, I think like today's mid-tier stuff holds its own or beats anything from like before 2020. And that goes for like Centurion. That's not seen as like a top 2, top 3 deck, but like it's just better than stuff released in 2018 or something. So
Full Power Thunder Dragons get soloed by tier 3 decks now.
Yeah, that's actually the truth. So anyway, it's a good question. I can relate to what you're saying. Okay, my next question is, if Konami asked you to create 4 balanced pre-con starter decks for any Yu-Gi-Oh era, but aimed at new players, what era would you choose and what decks would you choose?
Ooh.
That's kind of an interesting question. So I guess we're kind of doing like the Magic thing, where there's like 4 pre-cons, typically 4, and we're picking an era, and it's supposed to kind of be like welcoming for new players.
So I'm gonna mess with this question a little bit.
Okay.
I wouldn't pick one era.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't. I would actually use those eras as the foundations of my decks.
Oh, interesting. I get what you're saying.
So kind of similar-esque to the Tri decks in Japan. I would want one deck that is a fusion deck, one deck that is a synchro deck, one deck that's an Xyz deck, and then one deck that's a link deck. We're just not going to bring pendulums into this at all.
Oh, so you're like each deck kind of teaches a sort of mechanic, or kind of represents,
Because like for instance, my synchro deck of choice would be like Sword Soul.
Yeah.
It's a fairly potent deck. It does synchro summon, and it makes it super easy to a point where you'll probably never be able to play like a Stardust combo deck, but you at least know how to synchro summon. Mm-hmm. And my fusion deck would be that's actually a little bit tougher.
I mean, like you could technically just go with branded if you want something that's like, if we're trying to keep them of similar power level, then like branded would probably be a good one.
Would probably be the best one now.
But there's like others. You could maybe Shadal or something like that might be
Shadal
decent.
And then my Xyz deck would be.
Xyz has so many options. There are so many decks that just have like basic ass Xyz plays.
I would pick, but I'd want to pick a deck that slightly cheats their mechanic, but makes a lot like heavy use of their mechanic, similarly to how like Spriggans will, they'll cheat out an Xyz monster, but then they attach themselves as Xyz material.
I was gonna say Sprite might be a really good.
Ooh.
Low key, like Sprite could be a pretty good, not just for teaching Xyz, because I do have like 2 different Link monsters, but like. It's so basic. Like you just get a level 2 in the field, and then they can just kind of start summoning themselves and overlaying. Like
and you can actually control. People think Sprite, they get scared, right? But you can, for making a pre-con, you can just limit what the extra deck options are in the deck, and that limits Sprite like pretty substantially. Yeah, no, that would be. I think Sprite would be a pretty good pick for that. Yeah, I like that. So if I don't know, we're missing one, right? Link. So. Link is tough. You know what? Throw him a fucking Cyber deck. All the monsters do is summon themselves. So they do kind of just summon themselves. Would probably be. Salamangreat is such an annoying Link deck. It's a good standard kind of Link. I mean, it's not as annoying to me as like Mathmech. No, I say it's annoying because I'm personally annoyed with Salamangreat. Okay. Yeah, no. But it's probably the most fair not complicated Link deck we've ever had.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, if I had to do it, if I had to like pick just a single era, give them 4 fucking toss decks, call it a day. You can pick your Thunder Dragon starter, your Striker starter, your Orcus starter, and your whatever the other one.
You know what was fun about Toss? Just how different those decks played.
Yeah, they all felt fundamentally different, and that was cool.
And you had a bit of a like rock paper scissors format between the decks.
Yep, I remember like Thunder Dragon was always really tough for Sky Striker in general, just because of Colossus. But like also, you know, things like Orcus were it was very. Yeah, there was like a bit of a power circle.
Like there was a control deck. There was, there was a combo deck.
And yet they could all kind of do it to varying degrees when they had to.
Yeah, it was like a format. Really, many of those decks were just mid range. It was like a format of mid range decks.
And I think everybody looks back on it quite fondly. Some would say it's the last time this game was fun.
That was the last time I played competitively.
Some people might be Alec. Anyway, yeah, that'd be my 4. It's a boring answer, but I think it's hella effective.
Agreed.
The toss decks. Back to you.
Next question. Why or how did Speed Duel fail in your opinion? It feels like Speed Duel is officially dead since no new products are getting released and the last box didn't come to Europe, Midterm Destruction. Well, there is one more after Midterm Destruction.
Yeah, like Battle City Finals or whatever.
Speed Duel has brought me a way to still play Yu-Gi-Oh! With friends for the sake of nostalgia, while modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is way too pricey and hard to play for the casual player. Casual equals 2 to 3 hours of playtime a week. I loved playing like Chaz or Marek against my friends, and I am sad that I won't be able to do that as Arc 5 Sora with the Fluffle deck or Zexal Quattro Gimmick Puppet deck, or Gimmick Puppet deck. I was reading it as like a Quattro Gimmick deck, Gimmick Puppet deck. Speed Duel made Yu-Gi-Oh! More accessible, and the discontinuation is a punch in the face for the casual nostalgia player. I also think that Speed Duel was a fun way for the Yu-Gi-Tubers to get tons of views with a ready-to-play product. P.S. Love the podcast and the content. Much love from the Netherlands. Well, we appreciate you. We do.
Much love from the US of A. Let's see. So there is one new Speed Duel product that is coming out, although we don't know if it's coming in to Europe.
Oh, I don't think it is.
I somehow doubt it.
And I don't think this means that Speed Duel is continuing in the West either. I think this is.
I mean, they made the statement. They said
they did make a statement.
Yeah, they made a statement. They're like, this is the last thing you guys get. Then Speed Duel's taking a break. It's going away for a while,
which means it's permanently gone.
It's going away for a while. That's all. No.
So Paul and I have followed Speed Duel since its inception. While we haven't made like a stupid amount of content with Speed Duels, we did make content, and so that required us to open up pretty much every single Speed Duel product.
Yeah, we opened every single Speed Duel thing and played with it.
Sadly, Speed Duels, it took it a while to find its footing, but by then, I think the vast majority of the player base moved on.
Yeah, so Speed Duel started out trying to be basically just running kind of in parallel with the TCG.
Yeah, it was like a Yu-Gi-Oh! 2.
Yeah, where it was like kind of a or like Diet Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever you want to call it, where basically like they were releasing sets.
Yep.
Like I remember that one set that had like Kaiba or something on it. What was the Kaiba card? The one that gets the attack if you have no cards in hand or like one card in hand.
Oh, my boy, Blade Knight.
Yeah, like there's
Love
like one
that
that had Blade Knight on it. And they would release these packs, and Wing Karibo, Sphere Karibo was one of the packs, for instance.
And it was the most expensive card.
That was the beginning of the end because people already kind of they're like, okay, what's the fucking point of this? Like, because you could only use cards with the Speed Duel like emblem on them.
Yep.
And so you couldn't take your regular common 2-cent Sphere Karibo from your bulk collection and play it. You had to have like a Speed Duel Sphere Karibo.
But it was also a secret rare in the set.
Or ultra.
Or ultra rare.
But still like.
So it had a low pull rate and the prices online felt very.
It's like, why do I want to pay like $20 for it, So I think for a lot of people, just that whole, like, why can't I just use my regular cards thing? Why are you trying to resell me old nostalgia? Like, not even nostalgic, just old cards. Like, you're being resold as like new products.
We've talked about it before, but I think the booster set like system is dated.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work anymore.
And certainly not for Speed Duel.
Yeah, people weren't playing that for Speed Duels. They just weren't.
And so then I think Konami kind of started to shift a little bit towards like these starter deck models where they would do like the versus starters, which I thought were decent. There was like the Yugi versus Bakura one. Or was it Yugi versus Merrick? One or the other.
But they had the decks,
and they had like
the
Pegasus
set,
versus
right?
one.
There was still like a expansion sets with that you would buy with the starters.
Yeah, they were kind of doing them side by side. Like there was like a set, and then there was like a deck because there was also like the Weevil and Rex ones. Those are pretty good. I think they were beginning to find their footing because like it's easier to buy a pre-con for something like Speed Duel that's supposed to be lightweight and like super low barrier to entry, quick games, get in, get out. I think that the starter deck thing was an improvement on the packs.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Still not quite there yet.
Because at the end of the day, people did not want to spend a lot of money to play another form of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because the thing is, you were already playing Yu-Gi-Oh! If you weren't playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, it was probably because it was too expensive. So you did not want to get so monetarily invested in Speed Duel.
I think that they hit their stride when they did like the Battle City box and they started doing the pre-constructed boxes. For me personally, I think those were a winner.
The box sets were fire.
Those are great. It supports like up to 8 people playing the box, and then they do like the expansions in the box, and those felt good. My only issue is probably that was maybe a little too late sort of situation. Like
a lot of people had already written off the format.
Yeah, I think people just at that point saw Speed Duel as nothing super special. Most people's only exposure to Speed Duel at that point was like that they would do the really cool secret rare printings of a couple of like GOAT or Edison cards would get like snuck into a Speed Duel set, like a GX Duel Academy box or whatever. But in general, I think a lot of people have kind of given up on Speed Duel. But I thought that format was good because it's like almost like a board game. You can pack it up and take it out and like pack it up and take it out and like just play with friends. And so to me, those are pretty good, but it just failed because that came too late.
I feel like early on the Speed Duel format was not like monitored well by Konami.
Yeah.
Certain just in my opinion unfun strategies and decks existed in that format for way too long.
Yes.
Like stall and stun strategies were prevalent when Speed Duel first came out, and they stuck around for quite a while because there was not a system in place for like a ban list in Speed Duel when it first came out. And they weren't. I don't think they really wanted to even have one. But you can't keep a good Yu-Gi-Oh player down. The moment Yu-Gi-Oh players found that they could stall their opponents out or play just play every single trap the game had to offer, they did.
It feels like at the local level, maybe they weren't pushing it hard enough either. Like
there wasn't a reward for playing Speed Duel.
I remember seeing there were like some rewards in European territories. Actually, weirdly enough. Like they would have those like Trials of the Pharaoh, if you remember seeing something.
Was that a Speed Duel event?
It was like a Speed Duel thing, and you could get like these little trinkets and stuff for like playing Speed Duel. It was weird. Like I guess I remember like Speed Duel had like an OTS pack, but I never saw that.
Well, I've always said that I think Europeans are actually more like, even though there aren't as many like European Yu-Gi-Oh players as there are like American ones. I feel like they're more obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh.
They're more willing to like play any Yu-Gi-Oh they can get their hands on.
Yeah, I think they're just...
That's a good thing, by the way.
Yeah, that's not an insult. I just think you guys are more willing to just sink your teeth into any bit of Yu-Gi-Oh. And at least... And it's why it's strange that Speed Duel was canceled, across the ocean first.
Yeah. I still think the way they did that was really wrong of them. Like, to not really even give a statement on it, it just kind of It's
just gone.
Vanished. The one thing I will say is I think Speed Duel at least ended on a pretty good note in terms of like the characters it covered. I have mixed feelings as to how well Synchro and Xyz would have like worked in Speed Duel. I fear for power creep when instances like that come up, but I'm not sure. I think they could have handled it pretty well.
I think Synchro and Xyz would have been relatively fine. You can't avoid power creep. Like, a lot of those old like DM era cards just would not find a place where Stardust Dragon exists in Utopia. But that's any card game. There's no card game where your base set cards are still competitive. The Pot of Greed would survive all formats. Just wanted to be said. Yeah.
I mean, it was a fun thing. I do hope, and tons of views maybe is a bit of an exaggeration. I don't know that people are getting tons of views for Speed Duel, but our house tournament vid did pretty well. So
I enjoyed doing them. Those are fun.
Our next question is, what if Yu-Gi-Oh had its own convention like Magic Con? How do you think that would play out?
They could not do that. Those Konami employees would melt down.
Yeah, I mean, let's pretend that it happens.
Okay.
Right? There's going to be a Yu-Gi Con. This is something that
it will be on fire.
I've said for a while that Yu-Gi-Oh should do it, and I'm surprised that it hasn't. But so I've not been to a Magic Con event, to be clear, so I don't know exactly how that plays out.
It's had one in Vegas not long ago.
Yeah. Would it be like a convention where there's like kind of an artist alley and like panels and I don't...
So that can't happen because Konami doesn't like fan art.
Well, that's what I was going to say is like if they tried to have like kind of an artist booth, that wouldn't work because Konami's like, oh no, we're not going to in any way endorse the sale of unofficial Yu-Gi-Oh fan art. That's not going to happen. It sucks, and I wish that they could allow that, but they're not going to. So that kind of is X'd off the list. Can't have that. Panels... I'd love it. I mean, I really would love it. I just don't know who
would be in the panels.
Who would Konami trust to give? Yeah, they probably have voice actor panels. That'd be cool.
They can't do card artists. They're not credited.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think that Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe they just consider a YCS to be a convention.
I mean, given the point of the question, like this person clearly does not see YCS.
Yeah, no, yeah. To be clear, I think they should be doing more. So I think Konami probably thinks that that's like good enough. If they did have one, how would it play out? Maybe you could have... So you've got to have the voice actors, for sure. I think bring that VR thing that they were doing in Japan.
What you're describing is not a fan convention in the sense that we're used to. This would have to be a first-party, Konami official... event.
I think Konami has to work with Shueisha as well.
Yeah.
Like you get Shonen Jump and Viz. They all need to be like all hands on deck.
Everything in there is licensed and legal.
Yeah. Which would not be necessarily bad because like you know how there's like these random stray Yu-Gi-Oh things that like kind of are made by different companies. Like for instance, I got those these scapegoat things, right?
Yep.
These are from like this company called Toy Kingdom.
And that's an officially licensed product.
And it's an officially licensed Yu-Gi-Oh!
Not like your shirt.
But yeah, then I've got like a shirt from Think New. It's not official. But then there's like, what's the skateboard company that was recently?
Oh, I forgot the name of it. I did.
Yeah, like there's like the skateboard company. Then like Hypeland has like official stuff. So it's like there's always kind of these like sparse, different official Yu-Gi-Oh! High Ground did the keyboards.
You can get a chain from that one company.
So I guess they'd have to get them all under one umbrella and have them all at that convention. I think there would be some value to that.
Technically doable. Like, it's actually not the worst idea. The only problem is it will be incredibly expensive to put on. And like,
would the money they make back be?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess the ticket prices would be maybe, I mean, like, I don't know, $50 for like a day pass or something. Maybe a 4-day is like $100 or something like that.
I guess
you get a VIP thing going on.
I guess the vendors would be allowed, right? Like,
they allow vendors at YCS events.
Yeah. But they don't acknowledge it as a secondary market.
I mean, maybe they'd be okay with it for this. No, would this? Okay, so we're assuming this whole thing's happened. They've got voice actors. They got officially licensed merch.
Gotta have vendors.
I think they've got vendors, and I'm also gonna say that they've got like the game shop thing, so you can literally just buy like official stuff, I guess.
I wonder how they feel about cosplay.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Konami doesn't actually like cosplay.
Well, like is a strong word.
Well, no, I'm talking about Konami.
Would
as
they allow? Would they
corporation
legally like be able
Konami.
to?
I don't know if they're cool.
I think that they'd be okay with. Because here's the thing: people will cosplay at YCS events, and they get like feature matches and stuff. So I mean, like, I think that Konami is allowed to sort of be like, fans chose to dress up as beloved characters at our event. I think that they're allowed to do that.
But we can't draw them.
Yeah. But I think that they would probably be like, well, we can't they might not like sponsor a cosplayer to be there, if that makes sense. Like, you know, like some cons that we've been to,
Most cons,
they sponsor the cosplayers and they have like featured cosplay. Yeah, Konami wouldn't do that. They would just be like, if you want to show up here dressed up as, you know, a monster or a character, have at it. But like, we're just not going to like feature them as guests or anything.
It's all fun and games. So someone shows up cosplaying Little D.
Literally, even. So that's how I think it would play out. I think it'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, I think it could be done well.
I'd be there.
But the reason why like conventions can happen is, you know, a lot of it, the cost is spread out and outsourced to so many different groups. But Konami cannot do that. They would have to have complete control of it.
Yeah, that might suck some of the fun out of it for people too. Because like, yeah, it's a potent idea. That's the best I can say.
There's a lot of potent ideas.
Would you, if you're listening, would you attend a YugiCon? I think most people would still go, even if it, you know, even if it felt kind of contrived and buttoned up. I think people would still appear.
My next question. Oh, this one's very short. Did you ever have to deal with a super obnoxious player while playing at a card shop? Yes.
Alec, did you ever have to breathe to live?
I mean, I haven't been to like too many card shops, but sadly, there's always one.
Yeah, I think every card shop has a token annoying player.
It's not like it's not the fault of card shops, even card games. Card games attract all kinds because card games are unbiased. So people who typically don't fit into a lot of circles and social situations, they are free and welcomed into card gaming communities, and you know it can be a little much. Yeah,
no, I mean, like, I think that it's just kind of a given that a card shop is simply going to have some characters. You know, you usually get everybody complains about, you know, like the stuck up meta guy who like always plays the best deck and wins, but he or she is not the only villain of a card shop, trust me.
Oh yeah.
There are obnoxious casual people. There's like guy who won't ever trade anything. There's guy who kind of just does not understand social cues and like kind of is loudly talking in people's face or like kind of just getting in, you know, interfering into games or trades or whatever.
There's the person who doesn't shower.
There's the person who's not showered or like, you know, washed their hair or brushed their teeth in a week. There's a lot of people who can combine to make a truly awful experience.
Yeah.
However, the best thing I can say about it is that I don't think I've encountered, well, maybe that's a lie. I've seen people get banned from card shops for, you know, some crazy behavior. But like, I have not been the victim to any especially awful person, to me specifically, at least.
But I think for everyone, they have certain different tolerances for like obnoxicism. Wait, I don't know. I can't find the word I want to use there.
I get what you. People's just tolerance for like how annoying people can be. Have you had a particularly bad experience?
I mean, there's like two instances that kind of like stick out to me, but the first one wasn't even in a card shop. Mm-hmm. I remember playing in community college, and we all played very just casual decks. And I've told the story before, but like one guy, he brought Dino Rabbit.
Yeah.
And, you know, full power Dino. I say full power like that's a strong deck now, but it was a properly built like Dino Rabbit deck, and he would just like smack us around, and he'd kind of like laugh about it, and he was having a great time. You know,
he talked his shit.
Yeah, he talked his shit, but I mean that was his deck. That he played meta Yu-Gi-Oh. We didn't really know how to play meta. Like, he wasn't wrong for playing what he wanted to play. Could he have wiped that shit-eating grin off his face a little bit? Sure. But he didn't have to. He wasn't hurting me. He was enjoying the game. And like, it's not like he didn't steal anything from me. I still agreed to play with him like multiple times. I wanted to beat him. Had I beaten him, I would have been up there being obnoxious right back. Ha, you suck. But I didn't. He beat me every single time with impunity.
What's the other occasion?
The other time, I remember playing against a very casual player, but his deck, his strategy was just to make me not play. And then he was just trying to like deck me out. That was the whole game plan.
You know, that is
a like,
super duper overlooked trope is the annoying anti-meta casual.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear about it because everybody likes to say like,
Runic players. What?
Well, everybody likes to
not
say,
all Runic players.
Everybody likes to say, like, oh, the guy like playing Snake Eyes has a Mina and running locals. But there's also the guy in the corner who's just running like, Macro Cosmos, Necro Valley, Fossil Dyna, Inspector. Like, that can be just as kind of unpleasant to play against.
Yeah.
Personality-wise, even.
Because personality is a lot of it. It's not just the deck that they play. Like, he was an abrasive person, I'll say.
I mean, there's
and
also...
then, like, when you break through the BS that he's trying to play against you, he got mad.
Oh, yeah, then they get angry that, like, you worked your way around their, like, 5 cards that just stop you from playing, and it's like... Then you kind of almost get into, like, the Salt Lord. I've been at locals where, like, they're just people who get they're ragers, they get salty, they, break things, go storming out, like all these things.
Now I think about it, I recently played against a guy who ran a deck whose goal was just to not let me play, but he was much more pleasant than that last guy.
It makes all the difference.
When I did, like, fight my way out of it, he wasn't angry about it. He, like, laughed and said, "Wasn't that funny?" and kind of moved on.
Yeah. And, like, that's the thing is, I think it comes down to, like, it's a personality thing. It's not like a Yu-Gi-Oh thing per se. I mean, it maybe that, like, drives you towards a certain annoying deck or something like that. But ultimately, like...
When I think about it, the guy I'm thinking for the second story, he played Magic too, and that was he proved it was not a Yu-Gi-Oh thing at all.
He just plays annoying decks there too. No, totally right. I think we've all had to deal with a pretty obnoxious person. I haven't been like at the receiving end of the worst of it, but I've watched people be. So, anywho, so as one of the 2 Battle Spirit Saga players who watched the pod, LOL.
There's 2?
Surprise, surprise. Why do you think Bandai cannibalizes their own TCG market by making card game after card game? Surely this can't be as profitable as they think. So I guess this is where we kind of get into the more general card game things. Alec is cracking his knuckles. What do you have to say?
Because I'm pretty sure I know the answer.
Okay.
So Bandai isn't like other card game companies. Bandai is a company that owns a lot of licenses to a lot of different things.
They're not like other girls.
Bandai doesn't make card games. They make works based off of popular IPs.
Yeah.
Card games is just one of the way Bandai chooses to utilize the many IPs that it owns. Mm-hmm. It makes these card games because it has to find a use for every single IP that they own. Those licenses have to be kept up. They need to have they need to be making money off of everything so that one, they're making money, and 2, they don't lose their licenses. Yeah. Bandai does not actually care. This might be a stretch. They don't actually like care about card games like that.
Yeah.
They're making these card games kind of just to make them.
Just out of obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I mean, I've heard similar things through the grapevine. It's kind of like they go from department to department and just like, hey, what are you doing with this IP? Have you made this new figure? Are there any new toys coming out? What's coming out for Gundam right now? What's coming out for, Dragon Ball right now? They
look at an IP and they say, you're doing this, that, and the other. Hey, do you guys have a card game? No? Make a card game.
Make a card game. Use the IP and make a card game.
But the bright side is Bandai doesn't abandon its card games when they underperform. I thought, like any other card game company, I think would have dropped, like Dragon Ball,
like Super
Fusion, whatever.
Yeah.
I lose track with the Dragon Ball card games, but I think any other game would have or company would have abandoned Dragon Ball. But Bandai will continuously support that card game despite like maybe not the greatest like sales and not the largest player base, but they're going to consistently drop product for that game. And if they will do that for Dragon Ball, they will do it for every single card game they have until they're blue in the face.
Yeah. I mean, I think that with Bandai in particular, it can feel a little bit overwhelming, the amount of games they have. But I think that the key to their strategy, I suppose, is that you are not forced to play all of those games. If you want to try to play them all, that's kind of on you. I'm not saying it's a mistake to try to.
And they do try and make it as easy as possible for you to play all of their card games.
Yeah, like lately they've been kind of trying to like create this umbrella almost of just Bandai card games. Like I've seen that their flyer and stuff for it. But I think that they just want to kind of catch all strategy at this point. Like, you will find some IP that you are willing to play a game for.
Yeah.
And so for them, that works. Now, I have heard the sentiment from, like, say, Digimon players feel they're kind of neglected in favor of, like, One Piece or things like that. But they at least have not stopped with any of these games. Like, they are still keeping them running. They just maybe aren't
I think in some
as attentive
ways,
as people would
organized play for these games, it kind of...
And that suffers.
Support for organized play is purely dependent upon kind of demand and popularity. Unlike product, what these games will all get product on like similar S schedules pretty consistently because Bandai's just gonna do it. You can trust them to make and support your favorite card game. Organized play though, that takes manpower.
So I think there's two things that come to mind with me for organized play from Bandai games. The first is that regionals seem like they're hard to enter into and stuff like that. I know you've expressed that it's just hard to get into a regional and get signed up so far in advance and like, you know, these like waiting lists and stuff. But I also think that the consequence of having like 6 active card games or whatever is that a local card shop just quite literally cannot hold them all. Like you just kind of can't. Because
actually scheduling events is a nightmare at card
because your
shops.
average card shop has basically 3 days they're allowed to really work with. Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
You can try to do like some Tuesday tournament or whatever, but like the average working person's not going to really be able to like kind of show up for that sort of thing. So you get like Friday evenings, Saturdays, Sundays. You already have like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. They're already here.
And they will be there.
And they're going to, you know, try to do their tournaments. So then it's like, all right, we have Digimon, but then One Piece came out. And some of the Digimon players have swapped to One Piece, but there's a few who are just playing Digimon. Digimon was on like, you know, let's say like Saturday at 3 o'clock, but like we got to fit One Piece in somewhere. Oh, and then also now like there's Union Arena, and then there's that Gundam game coming, Battle Spirit Saga, Dragon Ball for the few people in the corner playing that. And this is all while like Lorcana is also out.
Yep.
You know, and maybe your scene's got like a Cardfight Vanguard scene.
Or maybe they have the Star Wars game.
And so at some point, there's just too many games to feasibly like... I mean, you could say that's more of a store issue than like Bandai's fault, but I mean, they're the ones releasing all the things. I don't know.
And to some degree, it may not actually be a bad thing for Bandai to release these card games because if you look at it one way, your favorite thing will get a card. If Bandai has a license to it, it will get a card game.
Yeah.
If you like card games and you like that thing, you're good. Bandai's going to take care of you for years to come. The downside is if you're coming from like Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic where you played more competitively and like often, organized play for those events can be a bit difficult because resources are spread so thin.
Might be, a little more unfulfilling, or I guess less fulfilling. Cool. Okay. Well, I don't know how profitable it is. Can't answer. I have no clue about that. I think that they just release these games just to have them out. So,
I mean, card games aren't expensive to make. We know that much. So there's probably some good money in it. Next question. Do you think that something like Pokemon TCG Pocket could work for other card games as well?
I guess it's a good time to say Pokemon TCG Pocket's been pretty fun. We've been playing it for the last week.
Yeah, it's solid.
You like it?
Yeah, I like
good.
it. I think
Me
it's
too.
horribly predatory, but I like it.
Most mobile games are. Yeah, I've had fun with Pokemon TCG Pocket. Could other games have something similar to it? My hot take's actually like no. And the reason why, I do think that every card game should aim to have an official simulator. A
Agreed.
digital sim, 100%. I think any card game released these days needs to have that. But Pokemon TCG Pocket specifically coasts heavily on the like name recognition of Pokemon. I do not think that any other property at all could get away with kind of the whole just like, you're going to just open this app like every 12 hours to get like your one pack spoon fed to you. And then like maybe consider buying a subscription to get like all of that. Like, cause no one cares enough about the characters and creatures and stuff quite like Pokemon gets it. Like you can say you've got your favorite series, your favorite thing, but Pokemon just has that X factor. Everyone's got their favorites and they are willing to just, it's almost part of people's personalities to some degree.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like the Pokemon franchise, and you're going to struggle to find a simplistic app like TCG Pocket being successful with another franchise. Even though you can spitball like another big one like Harry Potter or something, a huge franchise known around the world.
But I still don't think it would work as a game like that.
I don't think it does. I don't think Harry Potter has that young to old appeal. Like everybody can pick up this app and find joy in it. That's just how Pokemon works.
Pokemon's got like freaking 1,000 creatures to pull from. You can do like different arts of all these 1,000 creatures. What other franchise really can say that? Like the next best thing would maybe
Marvel?
be yeah, like but even Marvel in its entire roster of characters still doesn't actually really like have that, because even
there
if it
actually might be just as many Spider-Man as there are Pokemon.
Yeah, sure, but then it's like, well, like do you, because they're not like cute creatures that are your friends, they're just like, it's a version of Spider-Man.
I think Spider-Man Noir is cute.
So, but removing the popularity part from it, I mean, like, I think any game could try it out. Like, if they, I mean, it might be fun for the fans.
But I do think it would struggle. Because for the Pokemon TCG Pocket, it tries to be casual. Like, it wants to be a casual app that you can just play with one hand while you're doing things, and it's not supposed to be focused on. That's why you have to click so many times just to get to a battle. Like,
yeah, they hide that battle.
You have to pay attention when you battle, but that's why they hide it away.
Yeah, I mean they put on fucking auto battle.
Like, if your favorite like card game, I imagine you actually would not want a Pokemon TCG Pocket like app because you want it. It won't want you to sink your teeth into it.
Yeah, it's Pokemon TCG Pocket is lightweight by design. Like, I don't know that. Like, even with Yu-Gi-Oh, some people compare TCG Pocket to Duel Links. I think TCG Pocket looks a lot like how Duel Links was in 2016, back when it was just strictly kind of some early Duel Monsters anime decks and characters and skills, kind of, lightweight, not like fairly casual duels.
There's nothing lightweight about Duel Links.
But eventually,
anymore.
it hits that Yu-Gi-Oh point where. But I think every game should try it. It's just a thing. All right. Next question is, what is your view on indie card games? They usually have a small buy-in cost, but I don't know if they're well received because there's not enough people who play them.
Indie card games, that's a local by local experience. If you can find a consistent group of people to play them, fire. Every last indie card game is an amazing game. The problem is they don't have the money and resources to become widespread and become, part of the top 10 conversation. That's just not how money works.
The indie game thing's so tough because I think you'd be right to say that every indie card game is built off of the experience of one of the existing games. Right. Somebody played Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic and enjoyed it probably, but had like some flaws maybe whether they seek to correct in an indie card game, or maybe just want to take inspiration but think that they could kind of do it a different way or do it better. So there's always passion and creativity behind indie games. I think even like the worst, we'll say, indie card games at least have some of that in there. But the big problem really just comes down to like, I don't think that the games are bad. It's that like getting attendance and like getting a community, you have to like really, put in the elbow grease with that locally. And even despite your best efforts, it just still might not work out because you're just facing down an established Magic community, an established Yu-Gi-Oh community.
Some of the biggest indie games I can think of, and I might be stretching the definition of indie, but I think of like Alestrals and like Flesh and Blood. They're just card games that aren't owned by one of the big card game companies, and you will still struggle to just like go to a handful of card shops and find a Flesh and Blood or Alestrals community.
Right.
These games are probably the biggest of the card
indie,
games that are not in like top 10 conversation.
I think, if I can be a bit critical, I would say what tends to hold indie card games back from, and like the other things besides just community, is art's a big one for me. Art really makes and breaks card games for me, and I know that for a lot of these indie games, they don't really have the resources to like, contract extremely talented artists and have them like illustrate 1,000 different cards. So sometimes they, the art might not be as like sophisticated, and that can be a bit of a turn off for me. I have seen
some that have fire art.
Some have really good art. Some use AI, which
we don't talk about those.
Not too fond of. But I will say this: like, I get why they feel like they maybe have to. It's just like we cannot afford good artists, and AI can generate something.
Ever since artists found out their value, it's so hard.
Ever since these damn artists started charging things. So that's usually for me, like with indie games, that's kind of that can be a bit of a non-starter for me. Are there any other indie card games that you've like tried that you've found to be enjoyable?
I mean, I've enjoyed quite a few. I can't really. I'm blanking on names right
Grand
now.
Archive. I don't even know if that counts as indie, but I liked it.
I mean, I think it counts as indie. At this point, I count anything that's not one of our big card games as indie, because this is a rough market. Probably one of the most difficult markets to break into.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a card game with an actual company behind you, and you still
just fail to launch.
Fizzle.
Okay. A question for the viewers: what is your favorite indie card game? If I can ask, I'd love to see that in the chat. Anyway,
do you think the recent boom of collectibles, hoarding / price gouging is in response to the loss of property ownership as a wealth generator / nest egg? ? I had a discussion with my boyfriend about it, and he didn't agree. And I think I'm having a hard time properly articulating it. But if you guys get it, what do you think? Give me a sec. I got to reread this.
I think I get what this person is asking. And if so, this is a very interesting, like, kind of thought piece here. Because my understanding is that basically they're saying, like, okay, is this boom of... Because they're talking more about, like, just collectibles in general, not just card games. But this boom of, like drop culture. I got to get the drop
flipping
of
things on eBay.
Flipping stuff, kind of that whole... Is it sort of a response to the fact that right now, like a lot of, millennials, Gen Zers, things like that, it's like home ownership is a lot harder. And like owning land and stuff like that is a lot less common. But I can like own collectibles and kind of... They can accrue value. I can have like a collection. I can spin things. This person, I think, they're assuming that maybe there's something tied to are those two things tied?
So sometimes two trends can exist at the same time, and they're actually just not related.
Yeah, correlation doesn't equal causation.
Yeah. There might very well be a relationship between the loss of property ownership and the boom of collectible hoarding, but that is a very difficult subject to get into off the cuff, because the amount of money that we're talking is hugely different, right? The price of a house and the price of an expensive card are very, very different. And I feel like you have to jump through a few hoops to get to like bridge that gap.
So here's what I think is that maybe what they're getting at is like the sentiment though is the same. Like, I guess I may be playing devil's advocate a bit here, but like basically I think what they're saying is, okay, so you can't own like a truly appreciating asset easily, like a house or something if you're a millennial, right? I say can't, like it's difficult to for a lot of us. But even though like, owning this Charizard grade 10 card or like, scalping that PS5 Pro are not at all in the same league of worth, but like the feeling you get, the security or like the sense of profit is like similar, I think is what they're getting at. I agree with you, to be clear. I don't think that the two things are like directly related.
And I'm not saying there isn't a relation. It's just that the amount of research I feel like I would have to do
to have like an informed...
Yeah, to feel good about my opinion on this, I don't have the time on camera.
How about this? Let's answer it without research. What does your gut tell you?
I'm not trying to be one of those podcasts.
No, let's be one of those. Well, let's answer on feel alone. Answer with your heart. Do you think that people are scalping and flipping and like, just obsessing over collectibles and like, drops of electronics and stuff as a way to kind of patch the void left by the lack of material ownership of like real life assets?
No, I think people are putting a lot of value in short term money versus long term. I think a lot of people don't really care for like generating wealth. I think they care about making a buck. And it's really hard to understand how getting a house loan and buying a home and then having that appreciate over time. It's really hard for someone to understand and wrap their head around how spending money to buy this house will make them
potentially make them money in the future.
In the future versus, these, the new Jordans went on sale and I can double what I paid for them in less than a week.
You know what I also think there's something worth investigating with this is like I think that regular investments are boring. Your collectible favorite hobby things are fun. Well, and I think like that might have something to do with it. Like because even if we set aside like buying a home or something like that or like land, if you like wanted to make a kind of quick buck, you could like play the stock market, buy some low stocks, hope to sell high. Like people can do that. There are people who that's their entire life is buying like that, super like, fast stocks.
Casual day trading. There's a lot of people who do that.
So the thing is though, is like I think to a lot of people that's like dull. They want to still combine their interests and hobbies with their like drive to make money, and so that's where they land on like getting into scalping PS5s and trading cards and shoes because like they are partly interested in those things, but
I
they
was
also
thinking
want
it's because it's
money.
Unregulated, and that means you can do it even faster.
That too.
And scummier.
That's true too. But I think that the reason they choose these things is likely because they're at least partly interested in it. Now, that doesn't apply to all of them. There are people who literally have absolutely zero interest in Pokemon cards and strictly want money from them. And they just know that other people are interested in them.
I feel like the people who really engage in this in this hoarding, price gouging culture, I think they also do stock day trading. I think they do currency.
You think they're just doing
cryptocurrency
everything?
Yeah, I think they have an obsession with fast money.
Mm-hmm.
The volatility, they don't mind the volatility of it. They think that if they do it enough, that they're good at it.
They'll just profit over time, or you can game the system.
To some degree,
way.
I think it's an addiction to that hustle, to that gambling. It is to the detriment of actual collectors and hobbyists, but those people cannot be satisfied. The stock market, which is where they should be putting their time and energy into, there's a barrier to that, and there's regulations around it where they can't really get their rocks off. Not like botting the new Jordan release and flipping them all within 24 hours on eBay for a double.
What's kind of ironic about what you're saying it kind of is what they're saying in a roundabout way. The boom of collectibles hoarding and price gouging is kind of in response to loss of property ownership. Now, I don't know that, again, we don't even know exactly what this person's talking about in their question, but I do feel like you're kind of getting at it in a way that, like, why deal with something that's got, A, have to wait for, B, has regulations to it, and like paperwork and all that boring stuff. I can get a lot of fast money off some shoes or a PlayStation 5. Or, you know.
But I think when we talk about the loss of like property ownership, that's something that's more out of our hands. I think these people choose not to.
They're choosing to.
That if they had the opportunity to buy a house versus getting in on like the next like exclusive drop, they would just pick the drop every time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we certainly got into the question. I mean, like, this is going to be one that'll be fun to read.
Yeah,
chat.
the comments will be interesting on
comments, because I think that they're onto something. But like Alex said, I don't really have, like, I guess, the research done to draw any conclusion. But I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'll put it that way. All right. Next question is, what is it that you liked about TCGs? Are there any video games that give you that same type of feeling or satisfaction for me? Or like for me, it's constructing builds and seeing big numbers and combos and stuff like that. I guess it's a pretty quick and easy question. I guess they're just saying, like, the joy that you get out of card games or what makes them enjoyable for you. Do you find that in anything else? Like, for me, I think my answer would be like, I enjoy playing Smash Bros, particularly like Melee. And I kind of play Smash in a similar way to that I play like Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm kind of reactionary, and like I like sort of like baiting people in and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of the joy I get out of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of the same way. I like to not like string my opponent along, but sort of like set up kind of traps for them to walk themselves into, and then kind of deprive them of the resources and that sort of thing. And so I sort of, when I can play a video game that way, it's like similar for me. You? So
I don't know if I really enjoy anything in the same way that I enjoy TCGs. I certainly have things I enjoy, but my like obsession with card games comes purely from like, you know, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga and anime. Mm-hmm. So it kind of like starts and stops with Yugi himself. I've thought a lot about card games because of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I remember drawing a lot of parallels between card games, like fighting games.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
you're getting the same.
If I get that same enjoyment, because when I play card games, I typically just think I'm Yugi, and I in a weird way I just kind of role play when I play card games. I'm not very strategic when I play card games. I actually like to be in the moment. I like to play my games as if, like, how would Yugi play this card? How would he announce his next play?
Right.
How would that? For me, it's less strategic, more performative, mm-hmm. and I don't think there's anything else I have that's as performative as TCGs.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh, like the closest comparison I could make was Smash, but I think that you're right. Like, I kind of enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh in a very specific way. Something that I've talked about a little bit on this podcast before is that, like, I have a hard time, I've found, it is like loosely related. I have a hard time like explaining my Yu-Gi-Oh thought process to people. Mm-hmm. Like, there are some people who think I'm quite good at Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think I'm like pretty good.
Everyone should think you're quite good at Yu-Gi-Oh.
I think I'm pretty good. But the thing is, I have a terrible, terrible time like explaining why I did a certain play, or like how I'm
the savant can't explain.
No, that's not what I mean. It's not what I mean. It's just like, but like I really can't. Like, sometimes people are like, help me get better at Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm just like, I don't really know what to say. Or like, I'll try to kind of say it, but if you like look back and watch my games, I feel like I make like irrational decisions all the time, and like I'm not even consistent with how I play this game, if you can believe that. Like, I play Master Duel, and like sometimes I'm like okay, objectively speaking, if like Lightning Storm is a threat card, you should always make your boss monsters in defense mode when you're going first. Like, you just put them all in defense, and that plays around Lightning Storm. Sometimes I'm like, I don't really care. This time I'll put them in attack mode, and then like the next duel I'll just put them in defense mode, and the next duel I'll put them in attack mode, and then defense. And I sometimes it's like I kind of like just play it by feel, vibes, you know. Like we'll kind of and
It's
like
like
sometimes
in Blue Lock when Isagi went into the zone and he did a complex maneuver that let him score a goal.
Yeah.
And when asked to explain like how and why he did it, he was like, I don't really know.
I'm serious, dude. Like sometimes I search different stuff. Like I'll have the same static starting hand, and like in one duel I'll search one thing, and another duel I'll search another thing. And the fun for me is be like, oh, I searched this time, so like let's see how this duel plays out as a result of that.
Oh, like, it's like when in Kuroko no Basket, when Almine was just discovering new ways to score on people.
It's a little like that in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like how a savant plays a sport,
No. I'm not saying that in like, because I can't in good faith claim that what I'm doing is like the best way to play. It's just that for me, it's what keeps it kind of...
It works for you.
It works for me and it keeps it fun. Like, so, I don't know. That's... I like games to like feel a little different and feel a little random. And sometimes like I want to like let a duel last a little longer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like let's not like kill them this turn. Let's like see what they can do and maybe even like deprive them of more. Like for another turn of suffering maybe. But also but like I've done that and lost games. And sometimes when I lose those games, I'm happy because it's like, that was interesting. I made a choice to like not kill them this turn and I lost for it. And that like gives me a little joy. Because like there's a little bit of craziness. Like it's fun.
There's certainly some crazy in there. How I describe my card game.
I like that.
My card gaming is jazz, like improv jazz. I don't like to be very strategic when I play cards. I do mean it when I say I just like to live in the moment. I like to, because I'm not playing with cards. I'm playing with my opponent. And so I'm really like, I spend a lot of time just kind of looking at my opponent, like getting a feel for how they are, how they're doing. And whatever the cards are, they're just what they are. I don't like to spend a lot of time like thinking about my plays during my opponent's turn. I'm looking at their cards, and then when I draw my card for turn, that's when I start thinking about my plays. But I'm not about to just hold up this game trying to find the perfect move. Typically, I'll find a move and I'll put it down, and whatever happens, I just let it rock. And it can go crazy. Sometimes, like you've seen me play like combo decks. I'll just go until I run out of resources and I have no board. Nothing came worth of it, anything.
But you had fun playing the cards.
And there are times where I'll make the best play, and it's like, so what? Why'd you do that? I don't know. Yeah. The cards kind of just got me there, and it puts a hard limit to my like performance in card games. I know I'll never be a YCS winner, and I'm not going to top like many events with that play style, but I have so much fun when I can play almost purely off intuition and instinct.
I mean,
versus
in that
strategy.
way, maybe we're not like all that different. The only difference being that like, I think it's just that like you're maybe like less studied about what you're playing against.
I don't study anything.
Yeah, like because typically like I'm kind of just playing on vibes, but I know a lot about what my opponent's playing, so it lets me kind of just plan for that. But I still kind of like mess around. Like it's weird.
I'll be playing into blind matchups. Yeah. I don't be knowing what any decks do.
I mean, so anyway, one last little quick thing on this question is that I saw somebody make a really good point. I think it was in one of these podcast episodes. Is they compared doing like playing a Yu-Gi-Oh combo deck to doing like their rotation in Final Fantasy 14. And I thought that was a really interestingly apt like comparison. Just because like your rotation is something that you kind of rehearse it and you have to do it like quickly and optimally and like find little like kind of improve. So,
but I mean that's how you become successful. Mm-hmm. That's why I kind of can't play modern combo decks.
Yeah, I don't. Like
I will never be able to reproduce the same combo every single time. I won't memorize my lines. I won't play it optimally. Ooh. So what pops into my head when I play card games is, if anyone's ever watched this, is Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt. There's a character, E.O. Fleming. He's an ace Gundam pilot, and I hate him, but because he tried to kill my favorite character. But E.O. he plays jazz when he's fighting, and he shoots around space, destroying his opponents. And it's all improvised because the place he's fighting in is so volatile. He just has to be able to react within moments. And that's how I play card games. It's just a moment-to-moment improv fest.
Yeah, something else with me too is like I don't like to keep my opponent waiting. Like I don't. That's why I don't like combo decks. Is like I don't like the feeling of like we're on 5-6 minutes into my turn and I'm just now making like Electromite or something, and now the rest of the it's like I want decks that can kind of set up pretty quick, and then the times my opponent will be waiting is like as I'm reacting to them. I don't want to just be like taking up all the air in the room doing my 10-minute thing. Like I want to kind of quickly set up a board and then so now we can start dancing together. Yeah. I don't want to, I feel like that's a selfish way of. Anyway,
the selfishness is how you win.
Yeah. So cool. That's a lot to say on that.
Yeah, we got more on that than I expected.
A few more to go.
In a previous pod, Alex stated that he hates the thought of an AI. Wait, is this my question?
This is your question.
Oh, okay. In a previous pod, Alex stated that he hates the thought of an AI-like bot in his home. What possible options could sell him and Paul on the idea? Hypothetically, if a company released an autonomous robot product, you can buy a Metabot-like unit that will fully respond to your command, a unit that is fully 100% online, offline, even so as you have to manually update it with a USB, that has user safety protocols, protecting you from harm even above its own self, a unit that has personality types that will learn and act like a friend or a professional servant. If any bad manners is learned, you can simply tell it to behave and don't act like that to fall in line. Could such a unit truly see a place in your everyday life? As a kid, having a robot friend like the ones you see in cartoons seems like a fun fantasy.
Yeah, so I know on this podcast, we oftentimes will have these stories about like, here's this new robot that's going to come and clean your house and do all the stuff for you. And we frequently agree that that's not really something I want.
I don't like AI.
But this person asks, what could sell you on that? Or there truly absolutely just nothing would make you want to have this in your home?
So my thing with like those like cartoon robots, they were more so people than they were artificial intelligences. These like cartoon robots had personalities. It didn't feel like your main character was talking to a computer program. It really did feel like they were talking to a friend. So in cartoons, I think you just married the idea of a person and robot together, and you don't deal with the fact that this is a walking computer.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm still trying to figure out my thoughts.
So do you know what I think a lot of this comes down to? Is that so much of the whole AI robot companion thing that we talk about comes down to us trusting that it can be safe, just trusting it.
Yeah.
We have very little trust in it. If, some robot thing walking around your house, it's got to have cameras, it's got to have sensors, it's got to have microphones. It hears you, it sees you. It's it's supposed to learn you, but then in a weird way, it's well, do you trust the company behind that? That they're not just taking the footage of you asleep or just all your voice recordings and your shopping habits and stuff and just selling the data off. That's such a big thing. So this person says, okay, well, this thing is fully offline. You even have to update it, manually. So that's kind of supposed to get rid of that trust issue somewhat.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I do think an offline robot would suit me better.
Okay.
Because I remember, I used to have a Google Home, and I don't have a Google Home anymore. You know why?
Why?
Because one night I woke up, and it was just on, listening. It had a flashing light to show it was listening.
It was listening for a command.
Yeah, and it was just listening. But the thing is, I was asleep.
It probably got triggered by your snoring. Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Nah. Because there were times when I wasn't asleep, and I just kind of look over, and it'll be just listening, and I'm like, what's it listening for?
The fact that it kind of...
Why is it on? I don't like the idea of the things I own, things I purchase, being able to control themselves. And because they're hooked up to the internet, it feels a little malicious because there is data that I'm not aware of being
It's like,
sent
yeah.
out somewhere. So I do think
So this
if it were
offline thing would
completely
help.
offline, like it did not have the ability to connect to the internet, I wouldn't feel as bad about it.
Yeah, although you do get into, I have so many things. You do get into that thing where it's like, okay, being connected to the internet is part of what makes it helpful because that's what allows it to to answer what is the weather outside.
I don't want it to answer that.
So you don't want it to actually.
I'll go outside and find out.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. I was gonna say it's sort of the same. Like, there's two separate thoughts, but I guess they all kind of come back somewhat. The first thing is, as a kid, having a robot friend like the one you see in cartoons seems like a fun fantasy. You know what all the robot companions that you see in cartoons have in common?
What's that?
They were created by the person who uses them. And I'm saying all. I know there's some exception, but what I'm saying in general is like the reason why like the mad scientist can trust his AI companion, like Tony Stark trusts Jarvis or whatever,
or Friday,
because Tony Stark made the program, and so like
right.
There's kind of an implicit, like it can't be maliciously sending data of his to some other company because like he made it.
Tony Stark also made Ultron.
Yeah, I know. I'm just that's a big part for me is just that like, do you trust something that a company made and sold to you to put in your home, as opposed to like you're the tinkering genius who made your own, like you developed your own AI. Like I feel like then you can of course trust it. Like in Metabots, 'cause they brought that one up. It's a pretty good example. Metabots. They were these robots that they didn't really power on until you put a metal inside of them, and they had their own internal batteries. That world did not have like wireless internet. Metabee was not getting software updates from his manufacturer. When I forget the name of the kid from Metabots, but when he turned on Metabee took on a life of his own. And wasn't very different from a human. I don't upload anything to the net from my brain, and neither could Metabee. So in some ways, I could trust Metabee because it's not extremely useful and helpful. Metabee was an idiot half the time. Metabee didn't know a lot of things. And he had a bad temper and a bad personality, but people are like that too. So it was fine. So last thing, do you want this to be like a thing that helps you in your home?
No.
You want it to live with you?
Like, well, I guess it depends on what it does. Like, I don't mind, like, an offline Roomba I have no problem with.
That was actually something that I said once in a podcast how like, I want my AI to like do the dishes and the laundry, right? To free up like my own time. And I saw somebody actually commented a few weeks back and they're like, oh, like, Paul says this and yet like he doesn't want like the AI thing in his house. And I think that what I really want is like bespoke devices. So, okay, if this machine dries my clothes and then folds them for me, and that's all it does, then that's perfect. Like that's exactly what I want is just a thing that it will wash the clothes, dry the clothes, fold the clothes. And, maybe there's some AI component in that, like it has to kind of detect what type of shirt this is so it can like fold it properly. But like, I want it to be strictly limited to the task at hand. I don't know that I really want like this master device that can kind of just help me with it all and talk to me and like, and just do everything. Like if it's like the Roomba, right? It's just, it vacuums. And it can AI detect your room and like you can like maybe schedule times for it to vacuum. But like it just vacuums. That's kind of where I want it to start and stop.
It reminds me of this episode of like Rick and Morty where Rick created a robot whose only purpose was to serve butter.
Yeah.
And I remember like the robot's like, "What is my purpose?" And it's like to serve butter, and it's like, But like, I like the idea of just things doing the one thing and nothing else.
Yeah. So. I don't know that I could ever have like an all around robot be like living in my house. I would individual things that do like single tasks, sure, but I don't want something like kind of just.
I know people want their like robot girlfriends or like robot partners and stuff, and
I hope I
I
never.
could not with like my robot girlfriend hooks up to the internet at night. Like no.
It seems so because just imagine, you know what I mean? Like it's the data that it's gotten from the things you've said to it that day, or the things that you've done to it. I guess like it's got the data on you, and then it starts kind of like sending it around and forming maybe more thoughts and conclusions.
I don't need like stroke for stroke data going out to some company.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. It reports back to its like robot friends in the cloud. Yeah, he's below average.
It's like, dang. Nobody should know what the average is, but the robots can.
Yeah, the robots will know. They've had so much
they have all the
robot
data.
sex and data. Okay. My last question. What are your favorite animes? I'm currently watching Hunter x Hunter, then I'm probably going to watch Code Geass. Besides Code Geass, would you recommend any other mecha or Gundam animes or any anime recommendations in general? This person wants anime recommendations, and we could go all day about this, so I'm going to propose that we limit it to 3 recommendations each.
Okay. All right.
You got to pick 3 anime that you're going to recommend to this person. It sounds like they like mecha and Gundam, but they also are open to general things. And I cannot give mecha or Gundam related ones, but you can feel free to or not. I have some anime in mind. Go.
So I hate this question out of the blue because I've watched so much anime in my life. I'm at a point where it's hard to ever recommend just one. Where I really need to sit down and
gotta formulate a whole thing.
Because like not long ago I made like a anime like 3x3, but I feel so essentially there's 9 different anime that I would consider some of my favorites, but every year it feels like that changes, and I've been at this for so long. But
yeah, my answers
I'm gonna get one out the way right now.
I feel like my answers will always skew fairly recent because it's oftentimes just like what I've seen in the last couple of years. But I have a few timeless things.
That's the other hard part, right? Once you love an anime and it becomes like one of your favorites, it's always going to be there, despite the fact that new anime are releasing every single year, and now those new anime are competing with your old anime, and it's really hard to decide if you should be suggesting like older works.
There's another thing too that comes up for me. All right, there's all this preamble before we even get into the anime.
Yeah.
Here's your anime foreplay. Is also like I have found that it is better to recommend people like 12 episoders, just kind of quick one, like you know what I mean? Because sometimes I'm afraid to be like
difficult with longer.
Here,
ones.
watch this like 100 episode thing. It's like got 6 seasons. I'm just like maybe I should just like tell them like something that they can watch like in a weekend if they want to binge it.
But it's typically the longer ones that stick with you, you know?
Yeah. I've got, I think, 3 good recommendations that are short. But I also have good long ones.
Go for it. I'll keep thinking.
All right. So my first one is going to be Zom 100, fairly recent anime. It's good. It's about, a guy who has a very mundane job that he kind of hates, and he has to go to work every day. He's suffering. It sucks. Then there's a zombie apocalypse that happens, but he doesn't actually even realize that it's a zombie apocalypse because he's just so happy to not have to go to work the next day that he decides, I'm going to take this opportunity to just enjoy life and just, kind of knock off all the things on my bucket list that I want to do. I think it's a really good commentary on how the irony is that the zombie apocalypse actually freed him from his own personal zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, he was already a zombie.
He was a zombie going to work every day, just 9 to 5. It's dull. His boss, is terrible to him. Things just aren't great, and he's kind of slowly losing his soul, not doing anything that he wants to do. And so I think that is a fun thing, and it's 12 episodes, and it teaches a good lesson, and that'd be my first one. You want me to continue?
I'll jump in. Okay. I will recommend, now this is not a 12 episoder, Mob Psycho.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love Mob Psycho. So it's made by the same mangaka who did One Punch Man. And Mob Psycho is about a boy named Shigeo, but he goes by, people call him Mob because they compare him to a mob character in like an RPG. He's just
forgettable.
He's forgettable. But Mob is actually anything but. He has incredible psychic powers that makes him likely the most powerful person on the planet. But all Mob wants to do is be able to have a normal life with friends and have like a girlfriend and be a productive member of society. And he's living in a world that either outright ignores him or a world that desires the vast amount of power that he has. And he just wants to know, how does he get the girl that he likes to like him back?
Yeah, I think it's a really fun one. I like Mob Psycho. What's good about it is that even though it's like more than 12 episodes, it's like kind of broken up into these 12 episode seasons.
Yeah.
So you can pretty quickly decide like if it's for you or not. And if it is, then there's like more to enjoy. Mob Psycho, a really good one. My next one would be Erased. Erased is a really, really good one. It's a like 12 episode kind of quick one and done thing, but like it's fun because this one I can't say as much because like it's like a mystery sort of thing. So, but I will just say like a guy kind of has to solve a mystery by reliving his childhood. But when he relives it, there's kind of, it's to save somebody from like being murdered or whatever. So he has to like look for clues about like what might have caused that. And in the process, he also learns things about like his adult self that you can only really know by like reliving your childhood. That's the most I can say about it. It's definitely like a classic, I would say. It's really good. Strong recommend from me. Back to you.
My next one will be Duel.
Ooh, that's a great one.
Which is a bit of a nightmare of an anime. It's it's on the longer side, not incredibly long, but on the longer side. It is an anime that does not take it easy on its audience. It tells a narrative from multiple perspectives all at once, and it does not hold your hand in helping you put the pieces together. Typically, in the first episode of a Durara season, you'll get a perspective from a moment of time. Then you will get another perspective from a moment that could be either before or after that time. But before that one episode's over, you've seen like 3 different people's separate experiences, and only on like episode like 2 and 3 do you start actually piecing together what shared experience they're all having, and you're able to figure out what's going on. And it's such a wild ride following this eclectic cast of characters because everyone is so interesting. It has a superpowered Dullahan, a serial killer, an information broker who's really good with a knife, a bartender who's super strong for no apparent reason, and a bunch of high school kids who for some reason are at the center of all of it.
They get mixed up in it. I love Durara. That's a very, very good one. I was kind of torn on my last one, but I'm going to go with...
It's hard to limit, man.
Yeah, it's so tough to limit 3, but I had to because otherwise like this podcast is going to go like 6 hours. My last one's going to be like a little bit of a left field pick. The Great Pretender. Ooh. It's a pretty fun one. It's basically, about a group of people who are self-proclaimed con artists, right? Like they, without spoiling it too much, it's a group of con artists. They're sort of friends, and they, basically kind of like take credit for things people have done or like kind of steal money. But the sort of like underlying thing is that despite being con artists, they aren't actually bad people. And you have to sort of just watch the whole show to really fully understand that. And so they take on one new guy who thinks he's really good at being a con artist. Turns out he's not really all that great. And as he just interacts with them, he learns more about them, more about himself.
He gets better at conning.
And he gets better at like kind of lying to people, putting on disguises, conning people. It's a fun one. I think it's very funny. It's got like some deep messages. It takes you kind of around to like different parts of the world and things like that. And my addition that I would make to that is watch it dubbed. And there's a reason why. Just make sure that you have dub selected as your language when you start watching it.
Specifically the dub.
And I think you'll enjoy it fully that way. And that's my 3.
Do you voice one of the characters? Is that why?
No, I wish I did. That'd be great.
Because I actually think you could do what's his name's voice?
There's a few.
the main confidence man.
Oh, Laurent. Yeah.
I think you could
he's
do
fun.
Laurent's voice.
I love Laurent. He's a fun guy. That's my 3 though. What's yours?
Oh man,
Your third one out.
This is the part that I really didn't want to get to. So out of obligation, I'm going to go ahead and say Mobile Suit Gundam. I know it is my favorite, but it's hard to recommend Mobile Suit Gundam because there's a lot to that.
What is maybe is there a certain Gundam show you would? Because I know there's so many.
So my favorite one to watch personally is Gundam Seed, but Gundam Seed is like a melodramatic kind of new, different take on the original Mobile Suit Gundam. It's not to everyone's taste, and at this point, it's a little bit older, so I don't think people would. Not everyone's gonna love it. I would recommend maybe Gundam Unicorn. It's a beautiful movie and series. And you don't have to know everything about the UC era of Gundam to enjoy it, but it is a masterpiece of a work. But that's still probably not the best thing to jump into. So maybe just watch Witch from Mercury.
Yeah, it's a new one.
I really like it, and you don't have to know anything about Gundam to watch it.
Cool. Those are our recommendations. We might continue that in this week's bonus episode for these channel members who support us so much. But we still have one final question for you, Alec.
What's that? Oh.
I don't have it. They do.
So, Alec, what's that about javelin throwing? Expand, please. Just leave that lure hanging?
Yeah,
okay.
This person, I think you mentioned.
I did mention I used to throw the javelin when I did track and field. So, context, I played football in my years of high school. And, when you're off season, you have a choice to do extra conditioning with the football team during the summer, or the spring summer semester, or you can play another sport.
Yeah, okay.
And I did not want to be around my coach that much.
Yeah.
So I chose to do track and field. I'd only done track and field once when I was much, much younger, and I was horrible. But at this point, they gave me the field section because I wasn't a great runner. I wasn't very fast, so I did shot put, discus, and javelin. And that taught me that I was completely untalented in all forms of athletics.
Wow, great.
Because despite the fact that I've been playing football for some years, I was actually terrible at all 3 events. I could never get my coordination down, even though in my head I would memorize all the steps to how you throw a discus, how you throw a javelin, how you throw a shot put. But no matter how many times I seemed to do it, I could not throw a javelin far at all. But the same was I couldn't throw a discus straight at all, and I couldn't really get any distance on my shot put either. It wasn't that I was weak. These track and field events are more about technique than anything else, and carrying momentum through the motions. I would just perform every step of a javelin throw or a shot put throw as this jilted, stilted mess. And I would have no momentum, so then I just have to try and throw it with all the arm strength I have. And if you've ever thrown javelin before, that only takes you so far.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I threw a javelin.
I haven't, by the way. I've never done that. So I'm just sitting here agreeing. It's yeah, I've done that plenty of times. I know all about it.
The first time I threw javelin was actually in competition because we didn't. I think someone took sick and we didn't have a javelin thrower. And in track and field events, you get points just for having people compete in each event. So they last second had me throw the javelin. I had never done it before, and so I tried your best. Tried my best. I threw it, and I promise you, the javelin landed
behind you,
3 feet in front of me.
Oh God! Wow!
It just kind of went up and just went straight down. I had no idea what I was doing, and the worst part is, after that, I practiced javelin, and I never really got a whole lot better. I was a horrible javelin thrower. I remember I would practice with there was like one guy and one girl who did javelin, and I practiced with them, and they would both outthrow me by a huge margin. And I was like, I don't know why I can't do it. I'm doing all the right steps. But I'm pretty sure if I'd have watched video of myself back doing, it would have looked horrible.
Yeah, probably like your form.
I did discus as well, and discus, you kind of spin around and you throw a disc forward, get as much distance as you can. I never could throw a discus between the very wide margins we had to throw it in.
Yeah.
I almost never threw a legal discus. I would get so caught up in the spin, I wouldn't release it on time.
Yeah.
And the shot put, I had a bad habit of hefting it. It's a heavy ball.
Yeah, the little heavy ball.
I had a bad habit of kind of hefting it up. So instead of getting forward distance, I would get vertical, and it would drop in front.
And that's no good. I was always scared, like with a shot, but if it just imagining it just going straight up and just slamming back down and just killing me.
Well, you would never throw it up. You'd always try and throw it forward. What if I was just like
so unathletic that mine like went straight up and then just killed me?
Like those sports, you think like, oh, I'm strong, I can just do them. But these are momentum-based sports where you have to perform a series of movements to carry momentum into like whatever throw you're making.
Right.
It takes coordination, it takes strength and conditioning. It is not easy.
So I guess the moral of the story is you should have just stuck with the football team in the summer and just done more of that.
No, actually, but I still I enjoyed doing track and field, even though I was terrible.
Okay, yeah. I mean, probably a little bit more. It's like a different experience than just.
Yeah, it was a different group of people, different vibe. Because the only other football players on the track and field team are doing like shot put and discus too. Otherwise, when doing the running stuff, you're just with a different group of people. It was fun.
Yeah, well, that's all of the questions for today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this little sort of special, different episode of the Pod of Greed. If you liked it, remember dropping a like on the premiere or just the video afterwards when watching makes a big difference. Leaving the ones in chat, sharing it with your friends, giving us 5 stars on the podcast platform of choice that you listen to. And if you really, really like the podcast, maybe even consider becoming a channel member.
And speaking of channel members, stay tuned because a bonus episode is coming at you right now.
Yeah, so thanks you guys for watching. We'll be back with your regularly scheduled news and programming next week. Without further ado,
pass turn.
Pass turn.